comment, and subscribe.
So for this Let's Talk Jinx, it's going to be a sequel of last week's video with the preseason, because the preseason is a pretty hot topic right now, and there's actually been some conversation about, Jinx, AD carries, and really a lot of things going on. And so what we're going to do in this video is we're going to look at several sites, look at Jinx statistics so far on this patch, since we're about halfway through the patch. There has been some hotfix changes to the patch as well, so if you want to check out the patch notes video that we did as well last week, the TLDR patch notes as a matter of fact, it's a bit more of a parody video, but it still went over a couple of things you might be interested in there. Make sure to check that out as well. But first and foremost, for example, if we go to op.gg, right, it has Jinx here. It has, of course, some of the things like counter champions and strong against, and this is Korea on patch 10.23. What we're going to be interested in on this site is the trends, because according to this, Jinx's win rate down in the bot lane is about 49.1%, so almost around that 50% mark at the moment. So she's about way here, at least on this site, right around 50%, meaning that the changes didn't devastate her, right? Like, when I'm looking for with this is champions that dipped like 5%, they're like 45%, or they're 55%. They're either like super low or super high. Jinx is like kind of in the conversation still. She might not be the best AD carry on the patch according to the site. We're gonna check several, don't get me wrong, but it does mean that the changes weren't that bad in terms of some people. I've seen some people be complaining about item clarity and things like that, even, or just that some champions don't feel like they have a good mythic item, cough cough, gank plank. So with that being said, the pick rate, meanwhile, is looking at about a 2.8%, or around a 3% pick rate, which is not terribly high. That's probably good, because it also means Jinx isn't necessarily a broken champion and will have to be nerfed because she's being picked a whole heck of a lot, right? She's 12th out of 22 bot lane, like 80 carries right now. That's actually pretty good. She's a bit under the radar, even if she is pretty strong and not powerful. That's good for us. It means us Jinx mains, we get to keep playing her a bit more often. According to the ban rate here, it's 152 out of 152, meaning she is the least banned champion in all of League of Legends. That's what it means. All the champions that have been added, even champions you don't even hear about sometimes anymore until you get reminded that they existed, Jinx is banned even less than those champions. And we've done videos about that too. You can talk to August Browning, the kit designer for Jinx. The player base just really doesn't mind Jinx really all that much, usually 9 out of 10 times. Even when she's strong, they feel like, yeah, but she's immobile and she doesn't have the self-peel and blah blah blah, and so we'll still take that chance versus like a Vayne or a Kalista or a Kaisa if they were also strong. As we looked up here, not necessarily strong even, which is part of it probably too. That kind of feels good. The least banned champion in all of League of Legends. That's a pretty good title to have. It means our champion isn't getting nerfed anytime soon. Now, Jinx's win rate by game length on the preseason so far, and this is going to obviously be subject to change if we revisit this, say, coming out of the preseason in January, but one patch into the preseason, with all the PvE videos that I and other people have done, all the research that people have done, and things like that, it looks like this. She is 18th out of all the 80 carries. That's what it means, by the way. Out of 80 carries, this is not out of every champion in the game. 18th at ending the game between 0 minutes and 25 minutes, which makes sense. Kraken Slayer is a pretty good first item. It does a bunch of damage on that third auto attack to towers. Well, not a bunch of damage, but it does a damage like regardless, I should say. Whether you're fighting a tank for some reason, whether you're fighting other 80 carries, whether you're DPSing towers, Baron, dragons, etc. It does that regardless, and it's a nice feeling first item. You can still go some other items. We'll talk about item builds in this video too, but that's how that works. It does go up between the 25-minute and 30-minute mark specifically. Probably by that time, if you don't have Kraken Slayer and like Rapid Fire Cannon or Runon's Hurricane, whatever you want to go for that Zeal item, you probably have it by here. And so even if you don't have the third like Infinity Edge completed yet, you still might have enough damage depending on how much damage the rest of your team composition have and stuff like that. There's obviously lurking variables I want to make you aware of, and not just saying Jinx is like the 12th best. She'll just win every game 25 to 30 minutes no matter what. The build is like super broken on her, things like that. Right, in last week's episode, we had a conversation about people liking Galeforce over Kraken Slayer even, and vice versa for different reasons. This probably has to do also with like the meta, which we could touch on briefly, and the fact that there's probably also a lot of early game devastating damage stuff. You're not really picking a lot of late game stuff right now. So just being on the winning team, not saying Jinx is doing nothing, but like if you're on a team, just imagine, right? You have a Leona support, because Leona's not being touched apparently ever, which is fine by me because that's one of my go-to supports if I have to play support, so I'm not really complaining too much. But you have a Leona support, you have like a Zed mid lane, but it's like a good Zed mid lane, he like pops off and stuff. You have like a Lee Sin jungle, they pop off. Like, you're gonna get carried in that scenario, you're gonna win anyways, because the meta is like, people want to fight and do damage and stuff right now. So just keep that in mind too. Basically I don't want people's like egos or anything to get too inflated about, oh, Jinx is like, just super, I can just, put on the blinders, autopilot, and we win. Be aware that your team composition could play into that too, and it could help you get into other parts of the game that maybe you're struggling to get to, right? Like maybe you have mid lane or mid game champions, lean on them if you got bodied in lane phase so you can get to that late game, which, as you see, the trajectory goes up, right? You have 7%, 35 or 30 to 35 minutes, 35 to 40 minutes, 6%, but then it starts tapering down. As you would imagine, actually, yes, Jinx is a late game champion, but the reason it starts falling down once you get 40 minutes plus is because at that point, everybody's probably full items or getting towards full items. Everybody can kind of one-shot or blow up anybody at that point, and even you, if you're not positioning correctly, you might be fed, but you can also just get popped. You really don't want a game to go super late, even on like a late game, quote-unquote, hyper carry. You kind of want to try and end the game between the 25 and 40 minute mark if you can. That's the stats of this site though, and this is op.gg. If we jump over to say u.gg and all of the controversies there, what I'm looking at over here is actually the win rate of other AD carries versus Jinx, or Jinx versus other AD carries. And I sorted this by the one she loses against the most to the one she beats the most at the bottom here. So starting off, you actually see she only has a 40% or 44% win rate against Tristana, which is a crime. That should be Jhin, but Jhin is actually a 45% win rate. You steal that 4 from Jhin. You don't let him win that hard. That's a 4-4-4-4. But these two AD carries, for example, looks like you lose against pretty hard. And this is also measuring in Platinum Plus. So Platinum Plus and higher. So that's like Diamond and higher. This is what this is saying, at least according to the site. Yasuo, which you might not be worrying about depending on your elo too much of the bottom lane, but things like Vayne, Misfortune, Ashe, who has some CC and stuff, and then Samira. Samira is an interesting one. I will put a little bit of an asterisk with Samira just because some people have been actually using Samira or Jinx as a Samira counter because you can use the Flame Chompers to stop her dash. Remember, the Flame Chompers stop anybody trying to dash over them. So with Samira's ability, I want to say it was her E. I forget off the top of my head. I don't play enough Samira. I played some, but not enough to remember. The W is the one that knocks away all the projectiles and stuff though, so it has to be the E, the point and click and can dash. The Flame Chompers can stop that. And then furthermore, people using like the rocket form to kind of harass Samira, or at least just safely CS out of range of Samira's auto attack range. So that one's an interesting one. We'll see if that one fluctuates, because some people have been using basically what I'm saying, Jinx as a Samira counter. I don't know if that's going to continue on as we go on with the patch. Basically is also what I'm saying, so don't hear me and then in the comments be like, hey, I heard that you said Jinx is a Samira counter, I'm trusting you, and then like 5 days later come back and be like, look, I lost every game I played against Samira. This guy's a liar. I'm saying right now in the video, like, just heads up, some people have been using it to some success, but it's not a guaranteed counter, so just keep that in mind. But as we scroll down, you actually see things like the Xayah, the Senna, the Kog'Maw, some other like kind of late game champions now with Caitlyn and whatnot, that Jinx is like either close to a 50% or has 50% or more win rate against. With some of the AD carries she absolutely bodies, quote unquote. Twitch, if you count 53 and higher as being a body, I feel like more it's like a Phelios and Kalista, which actually surprised me. Kalista is not surprising. Everybody beats Kalista, it feels like, apparently, because Kalista just never gets to be a champion in League of Legends ever again. It's a terrible experience being Kalista, apparently. Phelios is a bit interesting because I still feel like he's pretty powerful in the right hands, and a lot of people, that was a conversation on the Jinx subreddit, was he's just a better Jinx in terms of like being that weapon swapper kind of a person. But it looks like if there was ever a time to beat Phelios with Jinx, according to this side, of course, now's that time. Ezreal's in the conversation, and Lucian, I guess, and Kai'Sa and Draven, because they're, I guess, 51%, you know, that's still better than the 50, but that's so close. I feel like you have to be a little bit aware of these matchups and playing them good, because that means you could flop in the other way probably pretty easily if you mess something up against any of these champions. If anything, it's really just these two, maybe Twitch, that could be a bit more of a favor to you if you see those being locked in, but there you go. And then finally, if we jump over to champion.gg. Over here, we're kind of looking at some of everything, because over here it tells slightly different stories depending on what the patch we are looking at. Now this is looking at patch 10.20 and Platinum Plus. So obviously if we go back that far, that's going to be a issue. But if we go over to, I believe, and this has been a while since I've used this site, and this might be why it's like this too, maybe we can't actually use this site to go to the current patch. That might be an issue. Yeah, this is not current patch statistics. If you're saying that's okay, champion.gg, it might be broken. So maybe we're not using champion.gg after all, and that's gonna actually not be something that works. Cool. Then we're gonna go back to u.gg and think of some other sites, because I know the LOL Kings is gone now, for example, too. Basically, the TLDR though is that it looks like there are certain champions that Jinx kind of doesn't beat right now that you would think build similar to. Like Tristana probably wants to build a lot of the same stuff that Jinx is building. Vayne, probably not, but maybe she also likes Kraken Slayer with the silver bolts, and that's actually probably what fuels something like that, is because that's kind of devastating then, that third auto attack. Misfortune's a bit of a lane bully, so maybe she likes things like the Collector and things like that too. There's some other items that are actually really good for lane. Jhin, August did tweet out that Jhin players should be building the Collector, for example. So that's an item that basically gives you like burst damage as an AD champion in lane. So, you know, burst damage, that's pretty devastating depending on who you are, especially if you're something like a Jinx, someone in mobile possibly, and things like that. We can look at more stats over here, for example. We can look at build paths, because we can talk about builds now. And as you can see over here, it varies a little bit, because some people, it looks like they're going, of course, for Galeforce. Some people are going for the Immortal Shield Bow. We're looking at pick rate. So the highest pick rate on terms of items picked, I was going to say pokened, no, picked, is Kraken Slayer, Runaan's Hurricane, Infinity Edge. Remember, Static Shiv no longer exists. The next highest pick rate build, though, is actually the Immortal Shield Bow, Runaan's Hurricane, Infinity Edge, and I imagine part of the reason for that would be, again, survivability, right? That's the item that's like, it's basically like back in the days when AD carries could build Sterix Gauge before they had to make that melee only, right? And then Galeforce is in the conversation, because these are pick rates, but if I go by win rate, the highest win rate build actually is going Immortal Shield Bow into Infinity Edge into Runaan's Hurricane. And the reason that might be, of course, is you want to survive. You want to survive, but then you still want Infinity Edge. I think a lot of people are still going to have to debate. And that's going to be a question I'm going to pass off to you right now. Do you think you should be building Infinity Edge before Runaan's Hurricane? Jinx does have some AoE in her kit with the Rocket form. Of course, people have to be clustered a bit more for that AoE to be really felt. But are you feeling like right now there's a lot of team fights that are in clusters and stuff like that? You can get away holding off on the Runaan's Hurricane until after the Infinity Edge. Because remember, Immortal Shield Bow does give attack damage and lifesteal and crit and attack speed. It just doesn't give AoE. So you're combining that with Infinity Edge, which also gives crit and attack damage. So now you already have like 40% crit chance off of these two items as it is. Do you feel that's actually good? Would you rather actually, like down here, where we see like Kraken Slayer into a Zeal item and stuff like that, like even over here with the Immortal Shield Bow, you think that's the way to go? As you see, it's like a lower pick rate, but the win rates are still pretty good on a lot of these. So a lot of these are above 60% still. Makes me question if these are actually accurate. Can we go over here and see if that's the same possibly? Over here, overview, so we go to items, right? Like over here, we go to, let's say, pick rate and win rate. Win rate looks like Kraken Slayer into Rapid Fire Cannon into Runaan's Hurricane. Okay, that's interesting. So some people are foregoing Infinity Edge and going the triple crit, but now treating Kraken Slayer like the first triple crit item. I don't know, personally. I'll just throw my own opinion in there. I think I do like the idea of having Kraken Slayer and Infinity Edge early for the damage, right? Like, because they both have crit on them, and then going for a Zeal item, obviously like a Runaan's Hurricane, because that also has, remember, Runaan's Hurricane, if you don't know, has attack damage on it too. So all three of these now have attack damage, have crit, and have attack speed. Not Infinity Edge though, but these two have attack speed. This has, I believe 25% attack speed, 60 damage. This has 25 attack damage, but still has critical strike chance, move speed even. I'm more of this kind of a person personally. I think I might go Infinity Edge over Runaan's Hurricane. For me, it varies, which is what I'm saying, my own opinion, if I throw that in there. It varies on the game. If we're team fighting a lot, if there's a lot of clustered fights a lot, then I'm probably going to lean towards going for Runaan's Hurricane early because of those clusters. If not, and a lot of fights are feeling like single target focused damage, I think I'm going for Infinity Edge before Runaan's Hurricane in that case, because then it's just about having all the damage to blow up that one target as fast as possible. And again, it might vary on things like team composition, you have CC, things like that. So that's something that's a bit opinionated, so in the video there by saying, what is your opinion? Comment in the comment section down below, but do not comment that I'm saying that Samira is Jinx is a Samira counter. Do not comment on other people's videos that Jinx is a Samira counter. I don't want to see any of that. If I see that, I will steal your pizza. So there we go. I don't know which video will be next, because I've gonna have a lot of kinks. So until next time, take care. GG, get jinxed. Thank you for watching, and enjoy pizza responsibly.